The ultraviolence, which has plagued football in Indonesia for years, reached its climax on Saturday. According to a latest report, at least 131 people, including 32 children, who came to encourage Arema FC at the Kanjuruhan Stadium in Malang, east of the island of Java, died there. In this video, I've brought the news of this tragic incident to you in detail. Make sure you stick with me to the end of the video. Without any further delay, let's get into it. The story of a deadly stampede. After this 3-2 defeat against rivals Persebaya Surabaya, 3,000 exhausted supporters of the local team took to the pitch. Then there was an invasion, followed by a crowd movement which claimed the lives of many people. It was an evening in hell experienced by the players too, despite being in the front row. The Arema FC striker, Abel Issa Kamara, explained to the Spanish daily, Marca, that the whole city was talking about this game, because it was a game that went beyond the 3 points. It was a game of life or death. Everything went wrong at the final whistle. After the defeat against the team of the neighboring city, whom it had not lost for more than 20 years, so the defeat of Arema FC struggled to pass in the eyes of the 42,000 supporters. Abel Issa further explained that they went to apologize to their supporters because they had lost the derby, and that was when they started to climb the barriers. It was then that the police immediately asked them to go to the changing rooms, because they risked losing control of the situation sooner or later. And while they had barricaded themselves, the worst happened. He recalled that they started to hear screams and gunshots and saw a lot of smoke. Then some fans managed to enter their dressing room and ended up dying on the spot. They feared for their lives as there were about 40,000 to 50,000 people outside who wanted their heads. Aware of the tragedy that was being played out, the players nevertheless took their courage in both hands to come to the aid of the victims. Abel Issa said that they came out of the locker room and saw a lot of blood, shoes, trainers, clothes everywhere, in the passageways, on the lawn, and even in the stands. He added that it was a sight he doesn't wish that on anyone. Next up, let's talk about Javier Roca's response to the situation. It was a terrible event, of which coach Javier Roca did not take full measure immediately. Testified on the airwaves of Cadena SCR, the Chilean coach of Arema FC said that after the match, he went into the locker room and some players stayed on the field. He added that when he came back from the press conference, he discovered the tragedy in the stadium, where some of the players passed with victims in their arms. The most terrible thing was when the victims came to be treated by the team doctor. About 20 people came and 4 died. While Indonesia is looking for those responsible to punish them, the South American technician, who was morally devastated, said he could not help thinking that things could have happened differently. He said he felt a heavy burden, even a responsibility. Results matter and determine what happens in the end. He wished that they had drawn, so that this wouldn't have happened. He continued that it proves that the stadium was not prepared. The organizers did not expect such chaos. It was like an avalanche. Nothing like this had ever happened in the stadium, and everything took on dramatic proportions due to the number of people who wanted to flee. Like other witnesses who pointed the finger at the police, guilty according to them, of the death of dozens of spectators, it was the excessive response that shocked Javier Roca. Javier Roca said that he thinks the police went too far, even though he was not in the field and did not directly experience this tragic outcome. Looking at the images, he said that the police could have used other methods. No result of a game, no matter how important, is worth someone losing their life. Next up, let's talk about the deadliest soccer matches in history. Soccer is the world's most popular sport, with an estimated 3.5 billion fans. Stadiums like FC Barcelona's Camp Nou sometimes house over 100,000 fans and often exceed maximum capacity. Combined with the charged environment, it's a recipe that can lead to riots and stampedes. Often, police forces present at the matches aren't equipped or prepared for these situations. Even in the event that they are, a long list of incidents attests to their general inability to control large crowds of soccer fans. Of history's deadliest sporting disasters, 63% occurred in soccer matches. Let's now talk about the 3 deadliest ever. The first here being the Estadio Nacional disaster. On May 24, 1964, the national teams of Peru and Argentina were pitted together in the penultimate qualifying round for the Tokyo Olympics tournament. The match, which Peru hosted at Lima's Estadio Nacional, drew a crowd of 53,000 people, which was 5% of the city's population at the time. Both teams played hard, and with 2 minutes left in regular time, Argentina was ahead by a score of 1-0. Then, miraculously, Peru scored a goal to tie the game, but the referee, Angel Eduardo Pazos, disallowed it. In just 10 seconds, tens of thousands of Peruvian fans went from pure joy to fury. The main trouble started when a bouncer named Bomba ran onto the field and hit the referee. When a second fan joined in, he was brutally assaulted by the police with batons and dogs. A fan at the game named Jose Salas told the BBC that this was what started the disaster. He said that their own policeman kicked and beat him like he was the enemy. He added that that was what made everyone mad, including himself. As the attack went on and the crowd's anger over the referee's decision grew, dozens of fans ran onto the field and started throwing things at the police and officials. A riot ensued, and police fired tear gas canisters into the crowd, causing tens of thousands of fans to try to leave the stadium through the stairwells. When fans got to the bottom of these passageways, they found that the steel gates leading out to the street were locked shut. As they attempted to run back up, police threw more tear gas down into the tunnels, inciting a mass hysteria and causing an enormous crush. Many details surrounding the incident are still unclear, and Peru's Ministry of Interior has never fully attempted to explore them. To this day, the Estadio Nacional disaster is the worst in the history of association soccer. Next up, there's the Accra Sports Stadium disaster. Almost exactly 37 years later, on May 9, 2001, a nearly identical disaster occurred in history. Ghana's two most prominent teams, Accra Hearts and Asante Kotoko, came together for a match at Accra Sports Stadium that later became the deadliest sporting disaster in African history. Due to the heated nature of the rivalry, extra security was ordered, as the trouble was anticipated. When the match ended in a 2-1 Accra Hearts victory, the match lived up to its expectations. Angry Kotoko fans began ripping plastic chairs out of the ground and hurling them onto the pitch. As with the Estadio Nacional disaster, police responded by launching tear gas and firing plastic bullets into the crowd, not just at those guilty of hooliganism, but at everyone present. This caused a massive stampede of 40,000 fans trying to exit the stadium, resulting in packed corridors. By the time the masses had cleared, 127 lay dead, most from compressive asphyxiation. Abdul Mohammed, a 35-year-old mechanic who was at the game, was trampled and laid out beside those considered dead. He recalled waking up with a sharp breath just before being dragged off to the morgue. He said that a lot of people were on top of him that night. Blood was all over as people were crushed to death. He tried to force himself out, but his strength had gone. He added that he didn't know how he passed out, and that it was a big miracle for him to have his eyes opened at the mortuary, else he would have been buried alive. Wrapping it up, let's talk about the third deadliest soccer disaster in history, the Hillsborough disaster. April 15, 1989 will forever be remembered by English football fans as the deadliest match in European history. The semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest was highly anticipated. As per custom, a neutral venue was selected, Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, England. Opposing fans were segregated, with Liverpool fans placed in the Leppings Lane stand. A high volume of Liverpool fans, in conjunction with limited entry to Leppings Lane, led to severe overcrowding outside the venue. To relieve the crowding, David Duckenfield, chief superintendent, and the police officer tasked with overseeing the match, opened an exit gate that led to two already packed enclosures. Nearly 3,000 eager fans poured in through the gate, a defense barrier snapped, and the crowd rushed forward, while those up front fell to the ground and were trampled. The chaos was so intense that the game was stopped. That concludes today's video. If you found the video helpful, please do consider giving us a thumbs up, and don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. See you next time.